Yo, what is up everybody? It's DrakenLC here, and today I'm going to be making a GD gameplay guide or tutorial, whatever you want to call it, I don't know. Basically, I'm just going to give some tips on not only making fun gameplay, but also how to improve bad gameplay and how to make your gameplay more enjoyable to watch. I hope this video can help you. Now let's get into it. And remember, this is all my opinion, not a 100% true guide on how good gameplay should be made. Okay, so I've made a little layout here. It's only 5 seconds. I'm using this song, Stomping Ground by Boom Kitty. It's pretty good. I like it. But basically, I've just made a layout. It's not really fun or anything. It's just pretty basic. I can play it really quickly here for you. So yeah, you can see the gameplay is kind of boring. It's all just like the same. So yeah. And also the structuring is pretty bland. You can see there's nothing really in the air. There's nothing down here. You can just go like this. And then you die to this structure. It's not really just it's too empty and bland and boring and just not a good layout. If you're just making a layout just to decorate it, then this, like the amount of structures here is fine. I'd say add some more structures in the air, kind of like this. But if you're just making a layout to decorate it, you don't need to go all crazy with like saw blades and stuff because, well, obviously you can do this in the process of decoration, which is usually what I do. I'll make the layout with these, but most times I'll put the saw blades in when I'm decorating. And sometimes I'll make structures when I'm decorating. I don't know. I just kind of do whatever. Now here, I'm going to fix some gameplay in this layout. I'm going to just make it more fun, make it more enjoyable, and I'll explain what I'm doing so you can kind of understand what I think makes gameplay better. So first thing, you can see, once again, it's all really repeated. So here, let's say this orb, for example. You can skip by doing that. You can jump over. So to fix that, I can add a floating block with some spikes on it like this. It works. And then you can see, let's say we've just put it here just because, yeah, to show. And you can see when you hit the orb, you kind of hit it, and that's not really good unless you want to make it really hard. Then you could have a timing, but I'd recommend for anything easier than probably hard demon putting this block up here. That way you can't jump over, you hit the spikes, but you can go under. Obviously, the spikes don't kill me because I have ignore damage enabled, which you should turn that on if you want to, I don't know. But yeah, so I'm just gonna improve the gameplay really quickly. So one thing here, you can see there's 3 orbs in a row. This isn't too bad, but in this situation, it's not very good. So I'm gonna replace this orb with a jump pad and put a block under it, obviously, so it's not just floating there. And that didn't work, so we're gonna move it and just play around until it works. So that's too high, so maybe we can do something like this. There we go. And then this, it's just kind of boring how you go up and down and then up again. So I'm going to put a blue orb. And then I'm going to flip the, oops. I'm going to flip this. Snap it to the grid. And then now we have a jump there. So when you use the blue orb and you hold, you jump. And we can even lower this so it's there. And then maybe put one of these to prevent bugs. And yeah, the layout's a bit better now. So yeah, that's basically how to make your gameplay better. Just play around and make sure you put variation. Like this block also is kind of weird, so I'm going to put it here. I mean, you could always half step it by going into the spike or this tab, selecting one of the smaller pieces, like the tiny ones, and just moving it over using WASD. This only works on PC and it does not work on mobile, which is sad, but I don't know. It's still a good tip. If you want to do it on mobile, you can move it over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of these, and then 2 of these tiny ones, and that's the same thing. Okay, so now that our layout's a bit better, we can play it really quickly just to make sure. Oops. There we go. Now that our layout's a bit better, we can get on to structuring, which I guess if you don't know what a structure is, it's basically any block or like if you have a ground spike structure kind of like this. This is also like a structure, like if you were to put this here and then like put black stuff under it so it's not just floating. that would be considered a structure. But for now, I'm just talking about blocks and like, you know, stuff like this and this. Basically, structuring it's just a good tip to get rid of empty space. Like you can see, there's this huge void right here. This spot doesn't really count because it's touching a block, but there's this huge void right here. So what you can do to fix this is just, I like to use this little L-shaped block like that. Make sure you put in the corner piece right here. It's this one. You just click and then boom, rotate. Yeah, pretty obvious. I'm sure you know how corner pieces work. Then you can put spikes on top. We can put maybe a block here. And we're going to use half spacing for not only that spike, but we're also going to give it a little connector to the ground and half space it so it's perfectly centered in the middle. And this already looks better. This looks better already. We can move that there maybe. I'd say half spacing is the most you want to do. You can use quarter spacing with this pixel selected. But the only time I use that is if I want to half space one of these objects like that. You can see now this is half spaced. Now I'm just going to continue structuring and kind of just explain what I'm doing. This spot's empty, so I'm just going to add a pretty big structure here with the L shape, put in the corner piece. You can always put some spikes on the top, so it kind of looks like there's something up there, maybe? I don't know. And then a spike there. I'll use this one, and then half space, just because it looks nicer to have it perfectly centered there, and yeah. Just continue placing blocks. If you find a block that doesn't look good, like maybe if you do this, that doesn't really look too good, just mess around with it, and just do whatever you want until you are happy with the result. And I'd say leave some empty spaces for saw blades. That's why I'm leaving this space, this space. This space probably won't have much because it's the beginning. Like this exact start of the level, I can leave this empty for saw blades. I can put saw blades here, but I'm also going to put a little structure. You can just do one of these. And now we can get to saw blades. If you're only making a layout, I'd suggest putting this on a different layer. And if you are planning on decorating it, I'd suggest putting it on an even later layer. So normally I just put saw blades on layer 1 for a layout. But if I'm actually decorating it, you could put it on layer 5. That way you have gameplay, 1, 2, 3, 4 layers of decoration for block design. Then the saw blades. So you could use 2 for blocks, 2 for air deco, whatever you want. But since it's just a layout, I'm going to be going to edit group and putting it on editor layer 1. You don't need to worry about this editor layer 2 thing. It's basically if you want an object on 2 separate layers, but you don't need to worry about that right now. Somebody's texting me, bruh. So there's 3 types of saws. I'm just going to be using these saws as an example, but normally in a layout I'll either use these gears or I'll use these. But you can see there's 3 sizes. You have the big saw blades, the medium saw blades, and the tiny saw blades. I personally only use these and never use these unless like in a really specific situation. But for the layout, I'm going to be using my regular saws, which are these just are what I've been using for layouts. I think they look really nice. So just turn off snap and then just place these here. If you don't know what snap does, basically, if I put here, let me zoom in. If you have snap enabled and you try to put it like right here, it's going to move it to the nearest grid space that your cursor is on. And then with snap off, you can place it wherever you want. So I'm just going to place some saw blades around like this. I like to put the small and big ones next to each other because just having a whole bunch of small ones like this doesn't really look good. So you can kind of like alternate them. I don't know if I'll put one here. I'll put it there for now and then I can change it later if I want. And then put one here. I didn't even layer these yet. Oh my god. So you can select them all, go to editor layer, click 1. Then you can press this go to layer button. And then now you're just on the layers with the saw blades. And there we go. I guess I'll put this here just because why not. Now we can go to ground spikes. So I'm going to go to editor layer 2, not 1. Here we go, 2. So now we're on a completely different layer. There's 2 ways you can do ground spikes. You can have them over the blocks like this. You just place them like this and go to edit group and put them on top 2 or just any layer above the blocks like this. Or you can have them behind the blocks or between them like this. So for this layout, I'm going to just be using this. It's more simple. I'm just going to place these. You can see this is a problem, but the way you fix this is remove these and then put in some of these like pieces. It doesn't look the exact same, but it still fills in the area. And then since this is the end of the level, we can just put an ending to it right there. You could put ground spikes at the top like this, but then you'd need to take these, like any block. I'm just going to use these for the example. you do this basically, but I'm not gonna do that because I don't really like doing that much. But yeah, as you can see, I'm gonna play this layout in save and play. Actually, before I do that, make sure you're on the all layer. Then push pause, select all, then go to edit group, do don't fade, don't enter, then go to edit object and disable glow. Basically, it just makes the objects not fade at the side of the screen, and then the blocks don't have the glow on them, which, in my opinion, the glow on the blocks just looks ugly. And there you go, we have a decent layout. Not the best, but it's still pretty good. Now that we've done basic cube gameplay, this is where it gets a little bit more advanced. Basically, in gameplay, there's something I like to call click and rest balance. This pretty much means make the gameplay in a way where the player doesn't have to click too much, but they don't have to not click or rest too much either. I guess the only exception is ship and wave, but basically, I'll explain here. So I'm just going to go up here, I'm just going to place some blocks as like a custom ground for this cube part. Oops, what? Okay, that's weird. But basically, I'm gonna make something that is the opposite of click and rest balance, or you can just call it click balance for short. So you can see here, just ignore the music sync. I'm not making this to be synced or unsynced. I'm just making it just to explain. But we have a little layout here, and I'm gonna turn the music off just because the music doesn't really matter for this. But you can see there's a lot of clicking. There's not really much resting. You can also just hold through it, but ignore that. But the entire time you're just clicking on every single block. And in my opinion, that's not very fun. So what we can do to change this is, well, let's say move the spike down here, put the saw blade on top, and then we can put a blue pad right here, and I'll give it one of these. So you click 1, 2, 1. You can see there's a pause here where you rest or you don't click. So that's just something I try to keep in mind whenever I'm building a layout, is to make sure the player isn't like going AFK too much and just doing this the whole time. What? Okay. Like instead of doing this, that's kind of bad, but then doing this as well, like don't just make it so you have to click all the time. Make it so like you click and then you wait and then you click more and then yeah. Just keep it balanced like that. Another good tip for creating gameplay is to put variation. By this, I mean don't put too many orbs or blocks at once. I did talk about this a little bit here. Make sure to use both blocks and slopes, and change the player's size and gravity occasionally. There are many more ways to vary your gameplay than just these three, but they are just examples. So I'll show you what I mean here. So for this, instead of having a block here, we can just delete these and put a slope. There we go, it's already a little bit more varied. Now here we can have a little mini portal. I like to scale them down to 0.5 and rotate them. And then we have this. And we already did use some variation by switching the gravity here. I'm just going to put a gravity portal and a big portal right here. That's just what I like to do to make it look better. Just try to put as much variation in your gameplay as possible instead of keeping it really samey. Now I'm going to be giving tips for every game mode just in general. So let's start with the ship part. For ship, I like to use ship orbs, size variation, and gravity variation. That's pretty much all the variation you can use. Let's say you have a little bit of straight fly. I'm not going to keep this balance in difficulty because that's not the point I'm trying to emphasize. So here, you know, it'd be kind of boring if it was just copy pasted straight fly all over the place. You know, this isn't really fun. So what you can do is we can actually keep this here. I'm going to make it smaller and I'm going to put some big spikes in it, I guess, just for more variation. And then right here, I'm going to put a green orb. So here, the ship hits the green orb, and then it goes into there. You can kind of just go up with the mini ship. Force the player to go up by, once again, we're going to use slopes. Oops. We're going to use slopes, and you can put spikes on the slopes by... Since we have 2 slopes, we're going to make 4 spikes. Going to put them right about there, and then click this snap button in the edit tab. And then they go here, and then I like to turn off the grid snap, keep free move on, and just kind of align them like that. And then that's a little bit too hard, so I'm going to move this back. And there you go. We have some varied ship gameplay. Obviously, you would need saw blades and more structures because the spikes are just floating, but just a little tip on how to make good ship gameplay. Now for ball gameplay. I don't like to use tight timings in ball parts because I can explain why. This just isn't fun. And it's even worse if you put the spike like here or like there. Because like it's kind of hard to judge exactly when you're supposed to click. If I turn off ignore damage, you can see it's really easy to die to ball timings. And you have to do it in a really precise spot. If you are going to use ball timings, I really recommend you use this spike for the one the player will be hitting before they click, and this spike for the one after. So it's not that hard. And if you want to put timings in a ball part, orb timings are a much better option. Oops. Like that. You can see if you clicked early, you get the block, and if you click late, it's fine. It's not really bad. It's a pretty bad orb timing, but just in general, use orb timings rather than ball timings, I would say, because it's just not very fun to have to deal with this type of jump in a ball part. Nobody would like that. Now for UFO gameplay. In this part, I'm actually going to go more in depth about variation. I'm going to show you how to use gravity, size portals, and orbs to make UFO more fun, as well as slopes. So here, first, we can put a gravity portal there and just move it maybe. I'm actually not going to move it off the grid, but I'm going to scale it a bit. And then here, you can put a blue orb, because orbs work really well in UFO parts. And then, why am I clicking the music test? But yeah, so you go here, you do 2 clicks, and then we can have something like this. And then we can have some slopes just to give the player a little bit of rest. Then we can have another blue orb. I really like using blue orbs in UFOs because I just find them fun. And then obviously for UFO parts, this is pretty nice too. Just having small portals like that. And you just kind of go up and down. And then we can just put another green orb there and there. That's a pretty good UFO part. We've used slopes, we've used orbs, and we've used size and gravity changes. And it's pretty fun, at least in my opinion. So we're going to go to the next part now. So the next part is wave. And the most important thing about making wave gameplay is not doing this. You can see here what happens is the cube, just pretend this block right here is the cube. The cube is moving along. It turns into a wave and runs into the block and dies. Don't put blocks under wave portals or in front of wave portals. Make sure you do it like this and move the wave portal down. This way the wave, it won't kill the player, and it just looks better. You could use D blocks. I'll explain D blocks later. For wave, you want to use slopes. I'm going to show you a trick really quickly with slopes, because if you take slopes like this is called reverse slope. So basically you can see it kills the player when the player isn't actually touching the slope like that. The reason for this, the inside of the slope is on this side, because they actually have an inside. The way you can check for this is go to the slope tab. You can use any of the slopes that have a back to them, like this one, this one, this one. This one works, but it's not as good. This one. And then there's more over here, I think. Okay, there isn't, but I just use the first slope. Basically, place this in your slopes, and you can see if the line is 2 lines or thicker, your slopes are wrong, and you want to rotate them. And you can see now it looks like it's just one slope, and then you can remove these. And you can see it won't kill the player anymore. Because now if we do this, yeah, you can see I die in the middle of the air. So yeah, I'll just make a little wave part. For wave, I like using kind of like this short little spam parts like this, kind of inspired by blast processing. I'm sure everyone here has played blast processing. If not, then what? And if you want, you can add little spikes in them, so you have to like dodge the spikes. Kind of like that. I'm going to be explaining what these blocks do, the D block. If you're going to use mini wave with D blocks, you need to use full blocks, and then you can make them invisible. I'll just make them black with blending, because that's the same thing as invisible. And then you can put these on top, because for some reason mini wave with just these lines in a D block, it'll go straight through right there. It'll go straight through the middle of them. I don't know why, but it does. So we can use this. And then we can put spikes in it. And then go to the orb tab, go to the last page, then there's D blocks right here. There you go. Wave gameplay. All of the easiest game modes to make gameplay with have been covered. Robot and Spider are harder to make enjoyable for the player, but with these tips, it shouldn't be too bad. I'm going to start by going into the Robot game mode. Okay, so we have a Robot portal here. First thing, I'm going to make a custom ground because like the cube, the robot doesn't have any boundaries. Boundaries mean if you take like a ball portal, you can see this is where the bottom ground will be, this is where the top ground will be. Oh my god. The robot only has one ground, and that is the ground that's all the way down here. But basically for robot, don't do this. This is called a micro click. I think they're fine, but don't make them too tight like this. Especially in easier levels. And then you can even buff it more than that, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, don't do this. This isn't fun. Please don't do that. It's not good. Just don't. If you want to make a micro click, I'd suggest this being your tightest or this if for a harder level. What I like to do in robot parts is make each jump a different height than the last two. So we're going to do that, and I'm going to put a little spike here. So you can see we have a micro click, we have a almost full jump. And then I'm going to make a medium jump there. And I can put some spikes right here just to make it look like it's really hard, but it's not. And then, obviously, use orbs in a robot part. Orbs are nice. And there we go. You got robot gameplay. Obviously, maybe you could use slopes like this. Okay, maybe not there, but... yeah, this probably isn't very good, but use slopes, use gravity changes, use size changes, use whatever. Now we're going to go into the spider game mode, which is this portal. I don't know why it's here when all of these are next to each other and then this one's just under there. It's weird, but spider game mode. The biggest rule of spider is don't do this. Don't place spikes at the top and bottom. This is not fun. It's just not very good. What you want to do, we can start off with a spike here. I'm going to move it up and place a block. And slope for variation. And then a block there. And you can see this is the problem. It goes over. One way you can fix this is by putting a black orb. It doesn't matter where you put it as long as the player's there. Then when you click the black orb, you teleport. And then we can move this ground down as well. So, and then there you go. You can make this. Be a blue orb there. That's not a blue orb there. And then you can have maybe like 2 fast clicks. Like this. There we go. And you can put some spikes in. One way to make this more fun is instead of having a click here, you can actually put orbs in the blocks like this. And the spider will jump using the orb. And that's just a good way to get the spider into the air. Another way to get the spider into the air is by using either slopes or jump pads. I personally prefer using slopes, but jump pads are always good too. So now you can see the spider goes really high. If you don't want it to go that high, you can use this slope. And then there we go. Spider part. Okay, now that all of the game modes have been covered, I'm going to give you some extra tips on how to make your gameplay better, mostly for transitions. So first, I'm going to go into speed. So this right here, if you have a slow speed part, do not transition it into a full. Like, you see how drastic that changes? And then, even if you have a 1 speed part, don't make it go into 4 times speed. That's too much. And don't put 0.5 into 3 times either. Don't do this either. That's not good. So, this is bad. This is bad. And this is bad. And then, obviously, if I copy paste, this is bad as well. Don't do that. If you want to do this, what I'd say is split them out and put a double speed in the middle. And then for this, you can put another speed change like right there. Just ease into the speed. But don't put this. This is bad. Don't put 1 into 4, 4 into 1, or 0.5 into either 3 or 4, or the other way around. It's just not. Now, another thing about 0.5 speed, don't make an entire part out of it, at least in my opinion. It's just not very fun to be in this speed because everything feels like a tight timing. And it's just not really that fun. It's just kind of boring to me to be moving so slow. And then 4 times speed is really hard to sight read. Like if you make a UFO part, you can see one jump. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 blocks about. Don't overuse 0.5 and 4 times speed. Definitely go ahead and use them. That's perfectly fine. One thing I like to do is if the song makes a loud noise at like a 1 times speed part, I'll put a dash orb with a 3 or 4 times speed portal in it. The reason I do this, even though I said don't do 1 to 3, is because it's in an auto part. And you don't have to actually... If it was like a pink orb here, I wouldn't recommend it. But it's just a dash orb. It's different. I don't know. It's more fun that way. Now, I'm going to explain why sight-readable gameplay is very important. The main reason for this, even if you're trying to make an extreme demon, make your gameplay sight readable. Don't make your ship 4 times speed with tons of blocks just everywhere, a whole bunch of orbs. Like this is just an extreme example, but don't put a whole bunch of orbs you're supposed to dodge and then like this. This just isn't good. Don't do that. Make it sight readable. Because even if it is supposed to be an extreme demon, you want your player to have a fun time learning a level. Because at least from my and my friends' experience, if they have a fun time learning a level, they will most likely want to keep playing and eventually beat that level. If they have a very not fun time learning a level, there's a higher chance that they will just drop the level and never play it again. Alright, now that every game mode is covered besides duel, because I'm not good at making duels, there's one more step you'll need to do to improve, and it's really simple. The best thing you can do to improve is, well, just make some layouts, experiment with your gameplay style, try out some of the tips I mentioned in this video, and see if they fit your taste. Just remember, this is all my opinion, and none of this is fact. If you disagree with something, leave a comment and explain why. I hope this video covered everything, as I'm going to end it here. Thank you so much for watching. I may make more tutorials if this goes well. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed. My Discord and Twitch links are in the description, so feel free to check them out if you'd like. Again, thank you for watching, have a nice day, peace.